They told everyone there had been a conspiracy between Russia and the Trump campaign. Yet on this central question, the special counsel's finding is clear. Case closed.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell right there, urging Congress and the nation to move on from the Russia probe, but also questioning if everyone can finally come together and find a little bipartisanship.
With an exhaustive investigation complete, would the country finally unify to confront the real challenges before us? Or would we remain consumed by unhinged partisanship and keep dividing ourselves to the point that Putin and his agents need only stand on the sidelines and watch us as their job is actually done for them?
Well, a short time ago, Martha McCallum sat down for an exclusive one-on-one with the Senate Majority Leader. Watch.
So you gave a big speech this morning about the end of the Mueller investigation. Mm-hmm. You also called out sort of partisanship on both sides in terms of the theories, the conspiracy theories that are out there. Do you want both sides to put this to rest?
I think we ought to put it to rest. Mueller spent 2 years on this. He interviewed hundreds of people. He reached the conclusion there was certainly no collusion on the part of the president's part. He brought no charges on obstruction. They indicted a number of Russians. It was clear what the Russians are trying to do. He pointed it out to us. What else do we need to know? It's time to move on.
Well, some would say, Senator Graham among them and the president, that we need to investigate the origins of what happened here in the intelligence agencies. Are you in favor of that, or do you want them to drop that as well?
Well, that's a decision for the Attorney General, and I think there's already an Inspector General investigation going on of how the investigation was initiated. These Inspector Generals in each department are genuinely independent people. I understand he's going to report at the end of May. And so we'll get an answer to the question of how this whole investigation began from the IG and the Justice Department.
What about the Senate investigation? Are you in favor of that being part of it, too?
On what the IG has to say as to whether there's anything else for us to take a look at. I think if he indicates that there was some suspicion around the opening of the investigation, Senator Graham might well decide that he wants to take a look at that.
Speaker Pelosi said, based on Attorney General Barr's testimony, she believes that he lied to Congress. If she believes that, what must she do?
That's an outrageous assertion. The man had a brief summary of the report, released all the report that was legally allowed to be released, put it on the internet. To call a public servant like the Attorney General a liar is completely over the top. These people are somewhat suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, they can't accept the fact that the president won the election. The investigation is over. Why don't we turn our attention to trying to see what we can figure out, what we can do together for the American people, and not squander any more time? We have the answer.
Well, you've called yourself the Grim Reaper, and you say that you are going to be what stands between socialism and the United States of America. So that leads some to believe that you see yourself as a stopgap from legislation going through in some ways.
Well, not legislation in general, but things like the Green New Deal, which will destroy your job, take you out of your car, and require you to rebuild your home. Yeah, I'm Grim Reaper when it comes to the Green New Deal. Medicare for None, which will eliminate private health insurance for 180 million Americans and drain Medicare resources that have been paid into over the years by current Medicare recipients, will be destroyed by adding all these additional people. You betcha. Those kind of proposals are going nowhere in the Senate.
So Brett Baier and I did a town hall with Bernie Sanders, Senator Sanders, a couple of weeks ago, and we asked the audience, how many of you have private insurance? And most of them raised their hand through their employer. How many of you would be willing to give it up for Medicare for all? And almost a large majority of the room raised their hands for that. So that is an idea that apparently has some traction in the United States.
Well, in that particular Bernie Sanders meeting it did, but we're really happy to have that argument, that debate with the American people in 2020. I can't wait to engage on the Medicare for None proposal. It's not just Bernie Sanders. There are 4 other credible colleagues of mine running for president saying they've signed up for the Medicare for None, and they've also signed up for the Green New Deal. So we're happy to have that debate. I can't wait to have that debate with the American people in 2020.
What do you say to those who say, the GOP has not come up with a plan of their own? And yes, in this current environment, it would probably get shot down. But why not formulate a plan, present it to the American people, and have all the senators, many of them running for president, vote on your plan?
I don't know why the Democrats are unhappy with Obamacare. They worked on it for a long time. We were unable to replace it. It's there, and they're not even satisfied with the principal accomplishment, they said, of the Obama years.
But why not come up with your plan, with a Republican plan, and present it to the American people and ask all the senators to take a vote on it?
Look, exactly what to do to fix the edges of what's happened after Obamacare is something we can talk about. Premiums have gone up, co-payments have gone up, deductibles are gone up. We're certainly not arguing that Obamacare is adequate. But what I don't understand is why they're so dissatisfied with it. They made such a big deal out of getting it passed, out of the president signing it. If they are willing to admit that there are problems with Obamacare related to the cost, the deductibles, the co-payments, we'll be glad to work with them on that.
So you're saying it must generate from Democrats. You are not going to there's not going to be any generation of a fix for Obamacare that's going to come through the Congress on the Republican side.
How would we be able to adjust health care in a way that we would like to with a Nancy Pelosi-led House? It's not possible.
So in terms of the Senate, you've got a lot of your colleagues that are running for president in 2020. Joe Biden, a former colleague, is at the top of the list right now in terms of the polls. Do you think that lasts?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I'm not an expert on Democratic presidential politics. What we do know is that we have an awful lot of candidates running, and it's fun to watch. Almost the Kentucky Derby was last weekend. There are more Democrats running for president than we had horses.
But, in terms of Joe Biden, just staying with that for a moment, he talked about China the other day, and he said, everybody says China's going to eat our lunch. Come on, man. Not bad folks. They're not competition for us, China, said Joe Biden. What do you think about that?
I can't believe Joe would say that after 8 years. That China's been eating our lunch for a long time, stealing our intellectual property, making it difficult to do business in China. Joe knows better than that. China is a serious competitor.
You have 34 Senate seats up in 2020. Which ones do you think are the biggest concern for you?
Well, we think we have a big pickup opportunity in Alabama, a seat that we unfortunately lost a couple of years ago in a special election. And then we're going to have some serious challenges in places like Colorado and Arizona and North Carolina and maybe Georgia. What
do you encourage the GOP senators out there to run on besides the economy?
Well, what we're going to be running on, in addition to bragging about the economy, which is about as good as it's been in 50 years, is we need to stop America from becoming something it's never been, a socialist country. Things like the Green New Deal and Medicare for None will fundamentally change America into something it's never been before. And we're happy to have a debate about that. We want the 2020 election to be a referendum on what do you want America to be like, a free enterprise society or something very, very different from what it's ever been.
Are you shocked that that's the conversation that we're having in the 2020 election?
It is shocking. I never thought in my lifetime that we'd be debating fundamentals like the free enterprise system in America.
So in terms of, you mentioned the Kentucky Derby. What did you think about the outcome there? Do you think that I had Maximum Security's owner on last night? He's not a happy man.
Well, the president didn't seem to like it.
He didn't.
Yeah, the stewards apparently make these calls, and they appeal it to the Kentucky Racing Commission. Apparently they viewed it as a clear violation. So it's over.
Do you think they should have had to come answer questions? A lot of people wanted to ask them a few questions about that.
No, I don't think so. I think we've got more important things to do than give the third degree to the stewards at the Kentucky Derby.
Senator McConnell, always good to see you, sir. Majority Leader. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur.
Yeah.
The question is whether it was adequately predicated. And I'm not suggesting it wasn't adequately predicated, but I'd need to explore that.
Attorney General William Barr asserting there that spying did indeed occur against the 2016 Trump presidential campaign. But that apparently isn't the thinking of the FBI Director Christopher Wray. Listen to what Ray constructed, saying this today before the Senate Appropriations Committee.
When FBI agents conduct investigations against alleged mobsters, suspected terrorists, other criminals, do you believe that they're engaging in spying when they're following FBI investigative policies and procedures?
Well, that's not the term I would use. There are lots of people have different colloquial phrases. I believe that the FBI is engaged in investigative activity, and part of investigative activity includes surveillance activity of different shapes and sizes. And to me, the key question is making sure that it's done by the book.
Well, just for reference, Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines spying as, amongst other definitions, to watch secretly, usually for hostile purposes, to watch secretly as a spy. Even former Director of National Intelligence, Director James Clapper, admits that the FBI's actions against the Trump presidential campaign do, in fact, meet the definition of spying. It took him a while to come to that conclusion. Perhaps Ray will be next in line to do so. Joining us tonight, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. Tom, you have had some of the busiest years of your career, I know. They're not letting up, are they? Tomorrow, the Judiciary Committee in the House prepares for a contempt vote against William Barr, the Attorney General, a contempt of Congress. This is on its face madness and mindless. Your thoughts?
Well, the Attorney General has been remarkably transparent with the Mueller report, and so he's going to be found in contempt of Congress by the House over an argument over whether documents that he's legally prohibited from giving them should be released anyway, contrary to federal law, something that could put him in jail and others in jail if they were released inappropriately. It shows you this is just another abuse of power in a long series of abuses of power by the Democrats that began during the Obama administration, continued through the Mueller FBI operation, and now the baton has been passed to Jerry Nadler at the DOJ to continue to abuse power to harass President Trump. And of course, it's a nice distraction from the fact that the Democratic National Committee, the Democratic Party apparatus, has been caught using donor dollars to collude with the Russia intelligence to attack a domestic political opponent.
But that attention they can't escape ultimately.
The lawmen can't be distracted. I believe that ought to be the case.
And in this instance, too, with Nadler, where should the White House go with this? Where should the Attorney General go with this? The logical first impression, it seems to me, is go to court and end this nonsense.
Typically you go to court over document fights and subpoena fights, whether the subpoenas are abusive or not. You can seek protection from the court from having to accede to them. Or if there are documents you want to withheld under court protection, you can make the argument to the court. And I think there's going to be a strong argument that can't be overcome without Congress literally changing the law to withhold grand jury material. We always want to see grand jury material at Judicial Watch under the Freedom of Information Act, but we can't because the law doesn't allow us to do it. And you got to change the law to fix it, if indeed it needs to be fixed in this regard. But it's a fundamental distraction from the fact, for instance, as you point out at the top of this segment, the FBI has no leadership.
It's stunning to watch and to listen to that.
That's that contempt
babble.
issue there. I mean, the FBI at the same time, right now, that FBI director is running an agency who thinks no text messages of his own should be subject to the Freedom of Information Act, protecting the same gang that tried to overthrow the president through an illegal coup.
So the president, again, being harassed by the Judiciary Committee and the radical Dems that make up now the Democratic Party, what was the Democratic Party, what should the White House do? They're saying no, and it's so refreshing to hear the Attorney General, to hear the White House counsel say no, the president to say no. But where and how is this resolved in your judgment, the most likely result?
Well, in a sensible world, there'd be a negotiation that would allow.
We can rule that one out.
But what would happen is that Congress would have to authorize litigation against the Justice Department or against the Attorney General to force compliance. And that litigation takes years. The Fast and Furious litigation, it only resulted in documents being produced to Congress. For instance, that was the contempt litigation of Eric Holder after Judicial Watch filed a FOIA lawsuit to get the documents separately. That it took, and they're still fighting in the Fast and Furious litigation.
So what you're saying is that we have reached a point in this republic where a clearly unlawful pursuit of a subpoena against the Attorney General of the United States results in years of litigation without resolution until every issue simply dissipates with time and becomes settled dust in history.
It's the attack strategy to harass, and it's not about the Attorney General, and he's sophisticated to know this isn't about him. It's about trying to destroy President Trump, and through an assault on his Attorney General for upholding the rule of law. He released a massive amount of information. You know, I've reviewed the document. I've reviewed the report.
Tom, I'm asking, where does it end? There's so much legal mumbo jumbo around this thing. It's infuriating.
As long as President Trump is president, his opposition will use every tool and misuse every tool available to it to make his life miserable.
Well, I can't imagine this president staying on defense. My feeling is he will soon go on the offense. Thank you so much, Tom. As always, Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch. Thank you, sir.